It all began on an ordinary night, the kind where the world felt calm and unchanging. Most people were asleep, the cities quiet, and the stars above twinkling as if nothing unusual could ever happen. But high above the earth, in a small observatory, tucked away in the mountains, a few people noticed something that would change everything. A faint signal appeared on their screens, barely noticeable, almost like a whisper lost in a storm. At first, they thought it was noise, a glitch in the system. But as the data kept coming in, it became clear that this was no ordinary signal. The message was strange and unlike anything humans had ever received. It was not random, not the product of machines or natural phenomena. It was deliberate, structured, and almost desperate. The team of astronomers stared at the screen in disbelief. Some shook their heads thinking they were imagining it, but the evidence was undeniable. The signals were repeating in a pattern, a kind of code that suggested intelligence, purpose, and, most importantly, urgency. When the news reached the scientific community, it caused a mix of excitement and fear. Many people wanted to believe it was the discovery of a lifetime, proof that humanity was not alone. Others warned that contacting the source could be dangerous. Humanity had dreamed about aliens for centuries, but now the dream had a face, and it was asking for help. The first official analysis revealed something astonishing. The signal came from a distant star system, far beyond the reach of any human-made spacecraft. The civilization sending it had technology far advanced compared to Earth, and yet despite their power, there was a vulnerability in their message, fear, and a deep sense of loneliness. They had no allies. They had been hunted, betrayed, and left to face their enemies alone. Governments around the world debated in secrecy. Some wanted to respond immediately, offering friendship and assistance. Others feared what might happen if the beings were hostile or if their technology was a threat. There were long discussions in quiet rooms, where leaders weighed the lives of millions against the possibility of making history. In the end, a small coalition of scientists and diplomats took it upon themselves to respond. They did not wait for permission from every country. They acted on curiosity, hope, and compassion. The response was simple, heartfelt, and honest. Humanity had no weapons to offer, no guarantee of safety. But they could offer understanding, a willingness to listen, and if possible, help. When the message was sent back, the weight that followed was almost unbearable. Every day, every hour, the team watched the skies, hoping for a reply, fearing it might never come. Then the answer arrived. The transmission was long, detailed, and filled with a kind of sadness that touched everyone who read it. The beings introduced themselves as the Ordai. Their words painted a picture of a world torn apart, of homes and cities destroyed, of families lost to endless wars. They were a proud and ancient race, once respected and feared throughout the galaxy, now reduced to hiding, forgotten, and alone. But despite everything, there was hope in their message. They had been watching Earth for some time, studying humans from afar. They saw a spark of courage, a will to survive, and a sense of justice that they no longer saw in the galaxy around them. They asked for a chance, not to conquer, not to take, but to survive. They wanted refuge, a place where they could live without fear, even if only temporarily. The idea of helping another species was daunting. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. Could Earth support them? How would the public react? Would other nations see this as a threat? But the scientists and diplomats who read the Ordai's words felt a different kind of responsibility. They realized this was not just about discovery or strategy. It was about compassion, about being human in the truest sense of the word. As the days passed, the Ordai continued to communicate. Their messages were filled with knowledge of the universe, stories of worlds humans had never imagined, and warnings about the dangers they had faced. Every message was a lesson, a glimpse into a civilization that had lived far longer than humanity, yet now faced extinction. The urgency in their words grew stronger, making it clear that time was running out. The first sight of an Ordai ship entering Earth's space was unlike anything humans had expected. It was massive, elegant, and silent. It did not roar or fire weapons. It simply hovered, a ghostly presence against the backdrop of stars. People across the world watched through live feeds as the ship slowly descended into orbit, moving with precision and grace. For a moment, it felt as if the world had stopped. Scientists scrambled to understand the technology. Military leaders debated whether to prepare for conflict. Journalists broadcast images and stories, speculating on what this first contact might mean. And yet, despite all the fear and uncertainty, a quiet sense of awe spread among the people. For the first time in history, humanity faced the unknown, and the unknown was not hostile. It was asking for help. The Ordai themselves made the first move. They opened a channel of communication directly with Earth's leaders and scientists. Their appearance on the screens was strange, their forms unlike anything humans had ever seen. Yet there was an unmistakable humanity in the way they spoke. They did not demand anything. They did not threaten. They simply asked to be heard, to be understood, and to be given a chance to survive. This was a turning point. Humanity realized that the future was not about fear or domination. It was about choice. The Ordai had no allies, no one to protect them. The galaxy had forgotten them, but Earth had the chance to remember. And in that realization, the people working at the observatories, the scientists decoding the messages, the diplomats negotiating on behalf of entire nations, and the ordinary citizens watching the news, they felt a sense of responsibility that had never existed before. In the days that followed, preparations began. Plans were made to provide resources, space, and safety for the Ordai. Teams were formed to study their technology, not for war, but for understanding. And amidst the planning and anticipation, a quiet hope grew. Humanity had a chance to do something extraordinary, to extend its compassion beyond its own kind, and to face the universe not as conquerors, but as protectors. By the time the first Ordai emissaries were ready to meet humans directly, the world had changed. Fear was still there, as it always is with the unknown, but it was tempered by curiosity, wonder, and a deep sense of responsibility. People spoke of history being made, not in battles or discoveries of power, but in acts of courage and compassion. They were about to prove that humanity could rise to the challenge, that standing for what is right sometimes means stepping into the unknown and helping those who have no one left. The first contact was quiet, almost ordinary in its simplicity. But in that quiet, humanity found its first test. And for the first time, the stars did not feel so distant. They felt reachable, filled with possibilities, and most importantly, filled with lives worth protecting. And so, as part one of this story closes, the stage is set. Humanity has reached out across the void, and the Ordai have responded. What happens next will test courage, unity, and the very essence of what it means to be human. But for now, there is hope. And sometimes, hope is stronger than any weapon or technology the universe can offer. After the first contact, the world felt both smaller and larger at the same time. Smaller because humans realized they were not alone in the universe. Larger because the galaxy now held a new layer of meaning, danger, hope, and endless possibilities. People across the globe watched the Ordai ships in orbit, trying to understand what this first meeting would mean for them, their families, and the future of Earth itself. Governments and scientists worked tirelessly, not just to communicate but to plan for what might come next. It was not easy. Some people feared the unknown, worried that inviting the Ordai closer could bring war or disaster. Others believed humanity had a moral duty to help. The debates went on for days in conference rooms, offices, and laboratories, but behind all the discussion, a small truth became clear. The Ordai were alone. No one in the galaxy cared about them, and no one was coming to help. The Ordai themselves did not try to hide their situation. Through countless transmissions, they explained what had happened. Their civilization had once thrived across many planets, each world a jewel of culture, knowledge, and achievement. But over centuries, they had made enemies, powerful enemies who sought to destroy them. One by one, the Ordai lost their homes, their allies abandoned them, and the universe forgot they ever existed. There was sadness in every message, a deep grief that humanity had never experienced. The scientists decoding the signals felt it. Personally, every pattern, every symbol, every tone carried emotion. The Ordai spoke not only with words, but with history, stories of families lost, cities burned, and hope that had been nearly extinguished. Humanity began to understand that this was more than first contact. This was a chance to rescue a civilization that had been erased from the stars. But with hope came a heavy weight of responsibility. Earth had never faced a situation like this. Could humans truly protect another race? Could nations put aside their rivalries to work together? In cities, towns, and research centers, people argued and planned. Some feared that offering sanctuary would make Earth a target. Others saw it as the greatest opportunity humanity had ever had to prove its courage. Slowly, a consensus began to form. Humanity would respond. Humanity would try. The first meetings with Ordai representatives were unlike anything humans had imagined. Their appearance was unusual, unlike anything in human biology, but in their voices, movements, and expressions, humans recognized something familiar: intelligence, curiosity, and even kindness. The emissaries spoke carefully, showing respect, patience, and humility. They did not demand help, they asked for understanding. In these meetings, humans learned about the Ordai technology, a mix of art and science, blending beauty with function. Their ships moved in ways humans had never imagined, silent yet powerful. Their energy systems were unlike anything on Earth, clean, efficient, and almost magical in appearance. And yet, the Ordai did not flaunt their technology. They explained it only to show humanity that survival did not require violence. Sometimes it required wisdom, patience, and cleverness. Still, the risks were clear. Some feared that sharing technology might be dangerous. If used incorrectly, Ordai systems could cause disasters. If seen as weapons, they might make Earth a target. But the Ordai assured the humans that their aim was survival, not war. They needed a safe place to live while they repaired their damaged ships and systems. Humanity listened, learned, and slowly began to trust. The more humans learned about the Ordai, the more respect they developed. They realized this was not just a stranded civilization, but a species that had endured loss, betrayal, and near extinction with dignity. They had faced annihilation alone, and yet they had survived. Humanity felt a connection, a bond formed not from similarity, but from shared experience. The struggle to live, to protect, to hold on to hope, even when the odds were against them. During this time, ordinary people began to play a role. Engineers, pilots, technicians, and even students volunteered to assist with translation, logistics, and communication. Hospitals prepared for potential injuries or illnesses. Cities prepared landing zones and safe areas. The Ordai were strangers, yes, but the people of Earth treated them with care. For many, this was the first time they had faced something truly beyond themselves. It was scary, yes, but it was also inspiring. And then the warnings began. Through quiet channels, the Ordai spoke of another race, one that had hunted them across the galaxy. They called themselves the Vireth, a species of conquerors who destroyed without mercy. The Vireth had already wiped out several civilizations, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The Ordai had no allies. They had run from them for centuries, and now the Vireth were coming closer, moving toward the edge of human space. News sent waves of panic across the world. Scientists tried to analyze the threat, while governments debated defense strategies. Every radar, telescope, and probe was focused on the distant stars, searching for signs of an approaching fleet. People feared the unknown, but at the same time they began to understand the courage it would take to stand against it. Humanity had never faced a cosmic threat before, but the Ordai were asking them to do exactly that. In laboratories, people worked day and night trying to understand Ordai technology. They began designing defenses, studying energy shields, propulsion systems, and communication methods that could help humanity prepare. Military leaders trained pilots and strategists, but they were careful not to act with aggression. This was not a war yet. It was a preparation, a readiness to protect life, not to conquer. Through it all, the Ordai remained calm, even kind. They offered guidance, stories, and teachings, not commands. They told humanity that fear was natural, but courage was a choice. They showed that survival depended not only on weapons, but on unity, understanding, and trust. And slowly, humans began to see the truth in their words. For the first time, people realized that standing together, across nations, cultures, and languages, was more important than anything else. The public began to notice the change as well. News broadcasts showed the Ordai ships hovering silently above the atmosphere. Some people feared them, while others marveled at their elegance. Schools held lessons about the Ordai, teaching children about courage, empathy, and the importance of helping others. Social media lit up with messages of hope, curiosity, and concern. People were talking not about war, but about cooperation, survival, and the possibility of something extraordinary. Despite the growing tension, humanity and the Ordai formed a quiet bond. Scientists shared meals with emissaries. Engineers swapped ideas and sketches. Children drew pictures of the stars, imagining a world where humans and Ordai could live together. It was not perfect. Misunderstandings arose. Some humans struggled to understand Ordai language and culture. Some Ordai feared humans might make mistakes that could be fatal. But even in these moments, patience and communication prevailed. Then one day, the Ordai revealed something that would change humanity's perception forever. They showed Earth images of the Virith fleets, massive and terrifying, moving silently through space. They had already destroyed planets, erased civilizations, and left no survivors. The Ordai admitted that if the Virith arrived in full force, Earth could be in danger too. Humanity realized the scale of what was at stake. This was no longer just about helping a stranded race. It was about survival for both species. In response, humanity made a decision. Despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite knowing the risks, leaders announced that Earth would stand with the Ordai, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as protectors. The world would unite, share knowledge, and prepare for the unknown, together. It was a bold choice, one that would define the future of both species. In the quiet of the night, while the stars shone and the Ordai ships hovered silently above, people on Earth felt a mixture of awe, fear, and determination. They knew that challenges lay ahead. They knew that the Virith were approaching and that the coming days could test humanity in ways no one had imagined. But they also knew something else, that humanity could rise to the occasion, and that sometimes courage meant standing for someone else even when the odds seemed impossible. And so part 2 closes with humanity at a crossroads. They have made a choice, to help, to protect, and to prepare. The Ordai are no longer alone, and Earth has taken its first step toward something greater than itself. The stars are no longer distant. They are a stage, a test, and a promise. What comes next will not only challenge technology and strategy, but the very heart of what it means to be human. The calm of space was deceptive. From Earth, the stars looked peaceful, silent and distant, but the Ordai knew differently. Their warnings had been clear. The Virith were coming, and they did not negotiate. They destroyed everything in their path, leaving nothing but silence and ruin. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this. It was not just a battle for survival. It was a test of courage, unity, and intelligence. As the days passed, signs of the Virith fleet began to appear on the outskirts of the solar system. The first glimpses were faint, tiny blips on the most sensitive telescopes. At first, some people doubted the data, thinking it was a mistake or interference. But as more observatories confirmed the signals, panic began to spread quietly among the scientific community. The virus were not only real, but they were coming closer, moving at speeds that human calculations could barely follow. Governments around the world convened emergency councils. For the first time in decades, old rivalries were set aside. Nations argued, debated, and planned, but the underlying truth was clear. If humanity failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. The Ordai offered their knowledge freely, showing Earth how the virus fought, how their ships moved, and how their energy systems worked. Every lesson was a warning, every example a call to prepare. The Ordai fleet in orbit was small, damaged, and struggling. They could not fight the virus alone. Humanity realized this quickly. Even with the most advanced technology Earth could muster, standing against an experienced, merciless enemy would not be easy. Yet, despite fear and uncertainty, humans began to act. Engineers, scientists, and military strategists worked side by side, combining knowledge, skill, and intuition. Ordinary people volunteered to help, whether by monitoring communications, supplying resources, or preparing emergency plans. It was a global effort, unlike anything history had seen. Every day brought new challenges. Ordai technology was advanced, but understanding it was difficult. The energy systems, propulsion designs, and defensive shields were unlike anything humans had encountered. Mistakes could be dangerous. One wrong calculation, one miscommunication, could result in disaster. Yet, human determination matched the Ordai's knowledge. Slowly, step by step, humans learned. They adapted, they improvised, and they grew more confident. Meanwhile, the virus drew nearer. Their ships were massive, dark, and foreboding. Sensors picked up their movements, but their strategy remained a mystery. The Ordai explained that the virus did not attack randomly. They studied, they analyzed, and then they struck decisively. Every encounter with another civilization had ended in annihilation. Earth had no time for error. The first visible encounter came unexpectedly. A virus scout ship entered the outer solar system. It was massive, sleek, and silent, moving with an efficiency that terrified observers. Earth's combined defense systems monitored it, while Ordai experts tried to predict its actions. The ship did not fire immediately. Instead, it observed, sending signals that were difficult to interpret. Everyone knew it was a test. The virus were probing humanity's readiness, measuring defenses, and assessing weaknesses. Humanity responded cautiously. A team of pilots and engineers worked together, using a combination of Earth and Ordai technology. The goal was not to destroy the scout, but to demonstrate that humanity could defend itself. For days, the two sides engaged in a careful dance across space. The scout tested, humans adapted, and the Ordai provided guidance. It was exhausting, tense, and sometimes frightening, but humanity held its ground. During this time, people on Earth began to feel the reality of the threat. News outlets broadcast images of the preparations, but not in a way meant to terrify. Instead, they focused on human courage, engineers working through nights, pilots training relentlessly, and scientists collaborating across borders. Children in schools drew pictures of stars and spaceships, imagining a world where courage and intelligence could protect life. Humanity began to understand that the coming fight was not just about technology, but about spirit. The Ordai shared more of their history, lessons learned from centuries of survival. They spoke of battles where courage alone had saved their people, of strategies that had outsmarted enemies, and of unity that had kept hope alive when the odds were hopeless. Humanity listened carefully, absorbing wisdom that could make the difference between survival and extinction. The message was clear: victory would require more than firepower. It would require trust, patience, and courage in the face of fear. As the virus fleet moved closer, humanity and the Ordai began building alliances not between nations but between people. Engineers from different countries collaborated on shield designs. Pilots shared knowledge and practiced maneuvers together. Scientists worked day and night, decoding Vireth strategies and testing Ordai technology. It was not perfect. Mistakes were made. Tensions flared, yet through every challenge people remembered why they were working together. Survival and hope. The Vireth scouts became bolder, testing Earth's defenses in increasingly aggressive ways. They fired energy pulses that tested shields, scanned cities for weakness, and pushed communication systems to the limit. Humanity had to adapt quickly. Each response required careful planning, combining Ordai technology with human ingenuity. Mistakes were costly, but every success built confidence. Humans began to see themselves not just as observers, but as participants in a struggle far greater than any they had faced before. In the midst of preparation, humanity learned something unexpected. The Vireth were not just ruthless, they were also predictable in certain ways. By studying their movements, patterns, and previous encounters with other civilizations, humans and Ordai scientists identified weaknesses that could be exploited. It required patience, careful planning, and trust in each other. Every step forward felt small, but every small victory mattered. On Earth, life continued even as the threat loomed. People worked, studied, and cared for their families, knowing the world outside their windows was about to change. Fear existed, but so did hope. Ordinary citizens began to understand the stakes. Volunteering, supporting defense teams, and spreading awareness became part of daily life. Humanity was learning that courage was not just for soldiers or scientists, it was for everyone. One night, as satellites tracked another approaching scout, a breakthrough occurred. Scientists successfully adapted Ordai shields to protect Earth's communication and energy grids. Engineers found ways to enhance propulsion systems for human spacecraft. Pilots practiced maneuvers that allowed them to anticipate Vireth attacks. It was not a complete solution, but it was progress, proof that even a species with no prior experience fighting in space could adapt and survive. The Ordai watched with a mixture of relief and respect. They had survived countless enemies in their history, but they had never seen another species rise so quickly to meet a challenge. Humans were learning, thinking, and acting in ways that gave the Ordai hope. For the first time in centuries, the Ordai believed that perhaps they were not truly alone in the universe. Then a signal arrived. The Vireth fleet had made a decision. They were moving closer, entering the solar system in force. The peaceful days of preparation were ending. Humans and Ordai had time to organize, to strategize, and to build defenses. But the real test was about to begin. The Vireth would no longer observe or probe. They would act, and humanity would need every skill, every plan, and every ounce of courage to survive. Despite the fear, there was determination. Humanity had learned to cooperate across borders, across cultures, and even across species. Engineers, pilots, scientists, and ordinary citizens all played a part. The Ordai, once lonely and forgotten, had found allies. And the world began to understand something profound. Survival did not come from weapons alone. It came from unity, courage, and the willingness to stand for what was right, even when facing overwhelming odds. As Part 3 closes, the stage is set. The Vireth fleet approaches. Earth is prepared but still vulnerable, and humanity must hold its ground. Fear exists, but hope shines brighter. The next steps will not just be about strategy or power. They will be about the human spirit, the bonds between species, and the courage to face the unknown. What comes next will define the future of both Earth and the Ordai forever. The day the Vireth fleet entered the solar system, Earth seemed to hold its breath. The stars were bright, calm, and beautiful, but above them, shadows moved, massive, dark, and threatening. For centuries, humans had looked at the night sky with wonder, dreaming of exploration, but now it was a place of danger. The Ordai ships hovered silently, damaged but resolute, alongside human-made defense satellites and spacecraft that had been hastily adapted to their new role. Humanity was about to face the unknown, and the unknown had no mercy. The first real clash happened in the outer orbit, far from Earth, where space was open and silent. The Vireth attacked without warning, sending energy pulses that tore through empty space, testing the shields humans and Ordai had built together. The pulses were not just weapons, they were messages, showing their power and reminding humanity that hesitation could mean death. Inside command centers, humans worked frantically. Scientists monitored shield strength, engineers adapted systems in real time, and pilots prepared for maneuvers that could save or destroy entire fleets. The tension was unbearable. Every decision mattered. A wrong calculation, a slow response, or a misread signal could end life on Earth before the planet itself even faced the enemy. The Ordai guided the humans through the first encounter, explaining how the Virith used strategy and intimidation. Their fleet was highly organized, capable of splitting forces and attacking multiple points at once. Humans quickly realized that conventional weapons alone would not work. It would take creativity, courage, and careful coordination to survive. The Ordai shared tactics that had worked in the past, teaching humans to anticipate enemy moves, to read patterns, and to act as one mind. The first battle was chaotic. Ships dodged energy blasts, shields flared and flickered, and communication channels were flooded with urgent messages. Engineers on Earth and in orbit worked tirelessly, rerouting power, repairing minor damage, and ensuring pilots had every advantage possible. Even small mistakes were dangerous. Yet despite the fear and confusion, humanity held its ground. The fleet did not retreat, and neither did the Ordai. Together, they created a defense that allowed the Virith to strike, only to be partially deflected each time. For people on Earth, watching live feeds of the battle was terrifying. Cities gathered in front of screens, schools paused lessons, and families clung to each other as they saw flashes of energy across the sky. The fear was real, but so was the pride. Humanity was standing with the Ordai, proving that courage could face even the darkest threats. Every pulse that missed, every shield that held, every coordinated maneuver became a symbol of defiance. During the fight, ordinary humans played extraordinary roles. Engineers who had never seen battle before calculated energy flows to protect ships. Pilots pushed themselves to their limits, executing maneuvers that were taught only hours earlier. Scientists translated Ordai signals in real time, allowing humans to anticipate the Virith attacks. And even on the ground, volunteers monitored communications, supplied materials, and kept the infrastructure running. Humanity had never acted as one before, and now the survival of an entire civilization depended on it. The Ordai shared a quiet pride in the humans' efforts. They had been alone for centuries, hunted without mercy, and forced to survive on instinct and cunning. Now they witnessed a new species rising to the challenge, learning quickly, adapting, and showing a determination they had rarely seen. In the chaos of battle, the bond between humans and Ordai strengthened. They were not just allies. They were partners in survival, each learning from the other, each protecting the other. The Virith attacks grew stronger. Their ships split into smaller units, attempting to bypass the human Ordai defenses. They fired with precision, trying to break shields and destroy key points. But humans responded with unexpected ingenuity. Pilots used decoy maneuvers, engineers adjusted shield frequencies, and scientists predicted enemy patterns before they happened. Every small success gave hope, and every mistake taught a lesson. Humanity learned quickly. Meanwhile, the Ordai shared more of their history with human commanders, explaining the strategies they had used against the Virith in the past. They spoke of battles lost and victories won, of civilizations destroyed, and of lives saved through courage, cleverness, and unity. The stories were not just history lessons, they were guidance for survival. Humans listened carefully, absorbing every detail and adapting it to their own style. Together, the two species began to form a plan that could finally resist the Virith advance. As the battle raged, humans and Ordai discovered another truth. Fear was powerful, but hope was stronger. Pilots pushed through exhaustion, engineers worked long hours without rest, and scientists continued calculations despite the pressure. Even civilians contributed in small ways, providing logistical support, sharing information, or simply maintaining morale. Every person had a role, and every role mattered. Survival was not just about weapons, it was about collaboration, courage, and the willingness to face danger together. The first significant turning point came when a human-led squad, working alongside Ordai ships, managed to force a Virith vessel into retreat for the first time. It was a small victory, but monumental. The humans celebrated quietly, understanding that this was proof that the Virith could be resisted. The Ordai showed genuine amazement, having seen civilizations fall without ever achieving a single victory against the Virith. For the first time in centuries, they felt hope that survival was possible. But the battle was far from over. The Virith regrouped and launched another assault, larger and more aggressive than before. Energy pulses lit up space, shields flared and burned, and the stress on human systems reached its limit. Command centers buzzed with frantic activity. Every decision was critical. Every action could tip the balance. Yet, humanity continued to hold, guided by courage, training, and the Ordai's experience. Amidst the chaos, human pilots learned to trust not only their technology, but each other. Squads moved as one, anticipating enemy actions, covering each other's blind spots, and communicating silently through coordinated signals. Engineers adjusted power flows to maximize shield efficiency, and scientists analyzed enemy attacks in real time, suggesting adjustments that could save lives. For the first time, humans were fighting not just for themselves, but for the Ordai, and the bond created a unity that made both species stronger. On Earth, people followed the battle closely, and despite fear, they found inspiration in human determination. Teachers spoke of courage, parents encouraged children to stay hopeful, and communities came together to support defense teams. Even ordinary actions, providing food, maintaining communication lines, or keeping morale high, became acts of bravery. Humanity learned that courage was not only about fighting in space, it was about standing together, even in the face of fear and uncertainty. As the battle continued, a slow but steady pattern emerged. The Virith were powerful, but predictable in certain ways. Humans and Ordai began to exploit weaknesses using strategy rather than brute force. Coordinated attacks, clever maneuvers, and adaptive shields began to turn the tide. Each time a Virith ship was forced to retreat or hold back, humanity's confidence grew. It was still dangerous, still terrifying, but survival was possible. The end of the first major engagement. Both sides had suffered damage. The Virith fleet had tested humanity's defenses, and humans had learned that courage, collaboration, and intelligence were their greatest weapons. The Ordai had found allies, and humans had found a purpose greater than themselves. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. And yet, amidst the smoke of broken shields and the hum of emergency systems, humanity felt something it had never experienced before: pride. They had faced a force that had destroyed civilizations, a fleet that had no mercy, and they had survived, not by chance but by courage, cooperation, and the determination to protect life beyond their own. Part 4 closes with humanity and the Ordai holding their ground in orbit. The Virith remain a threat, powerful and relentless, but Earth has proven that it can resist. The stage is set for the next phase, where courage will be tested further, strategies will be pushed to their limits, and the bond between humans and the Ordai will grow even stronger. The fight is far from over, but humanity has already shown that it will not surrender. The days after the first battle were tense, filled with preparation, reflection, and a growing sense of purpose. Humanity had survived the Virith assault, but everyone knew it was only the beginning. The Virith were relentless hunters, experienced, and merciless. They had destroyed entire civilizations before, and yet, Earth had stood firm, proving that courage, intelligence, and unity could resist even the most powerful enemies. Scientists, engineers, and Ordai strategists worked side by side to analyze the last battle. Every attack, every energy, pulse, every movement of the Virith fleet was studied in detail. Humans were learning faster than anyone expected. They began to understand patterns in the Virith attacks, noticing how the enemy would test defenses before striking, how they measured weaknesses, and how they coordinated their ships like a single living organism. The more humans learned, the more confident they became, but the threat remained immense. Ordinary people also played a critical role. Volunteers helped maintain communication systems, monitored satellites, and supported emergency services in cities. Schools and workplaces adapted, with people contributing wherever they could. Even small actions mattered, and humanity began to realize that the coming battle was not just about pilots or soldiers. It was about every person standing together, doing their part, and refusing to give up. The Ordai shared more of their history, recounting battles where courage had changed the course of events. They explained that strategy alone was not enough. Survival required adaptability, quick thinking, and trust in allies. Humans listened carefully, absorbing lessons from a civilization far older than their own. Every discussion, every shared idea, strengthened the growing bond between the two species. The Ordai were no longer strangers. They were partners, teachers, and friends. As the Virith fleet approached, Earth implemented the next phase of defense. Humanity and the Ordai had built new shield systems, coordinated fleet formations, and prepared energy pulses designed to disrupt enemy attacks. Pilots trained tirelessly, practicing maneuvers that required perfect timing and trust. Engineers optimized every system, and scientists ran simulations to predict enemy strategies. The level of cooperation was unprecedented. Humanity was learning what it truly meant to work as one. The Virith arrived in force, larger and more aggressive than before. The sheer scale of their fleet was overwhelming, stretching across millions of kilometers in space. Their ships moved, with precision, energy pulsating from their weapons, testing every shield, every formation, every plan. Fear gripped even the most experienced commanders, but they pushed forward, knowing that hesitation could be deadly. The first wave of the Virith assault hit orbital defenses near the moon. Energy blasts tore through space, but the newly reinforced shields held, absorbing impacts that would have destroyed ships only days before. Pilots executed maneuvers that relied on both human ingenuity and Ordai guidance. Every decision, every adjustment, every action had to be perfect. And yet, even amid chaos, humanity did not falter. On Earth, people watched with a mix of awe and anxiety. Live feeds showed the flicker of energy shields, the flash of engines, and the precise movements of pilots. Children and adults alike felt the tension, but they also saw bravery, determination, and hope. Communities came together, offering support, wherever possible, understanding that even those on the ground were part of the fight. Every act of courage, every decision to help, strengthened the bond between people and reminded them why survival mattered. The battle escalated. The Virith attacked with coordinated waves, testing multiple points simultaneously. For the first time, humans and Ordai implemented a combined tactic that required exact timing and complete trust. Fleet formations shifted, shields adjusted, and energy pulses were synchronized to create barriers in space while forcing enemy ships to retreat. It was risky, but it worked. The Virith were pushed back, forced to regroup after facing a defense stronger than they had anticipated. The first success gave humans renewed determination. Engineers worked through the night, optimizing systems for the next wave. Pilots trained relentlessly, practicing maneuvers that had seemed impossible just days earlier. Scientists analyzed enemy strategies in real time, providing commanders with data that allowed them to anticipate attacks and respond quickly. The bond between humans and Ordai grew stronger, each species learning from the other, adapting, and refining their approach. But the Virith were not easily defeated. They struck again, this time with more force, targeting both orbital and planetary systems. Cities on Earth were at risk from energy pulses, and fear spread among civilians. Yet even in the darkest moments, humanity did not panic. Emergency response teams, engineers, and volunteers acted swiftly, minimizing damage and protecting lives. The courage of ordinary people became as vital as the bravery of pilots and soldiers. Amid the chaos, a human-led operation achieved a breakthrough, Using data from previous battles, engineers and Ordai strategists developed a coordinated strike that could disrupt the Virith command systems temporarily. Pilots executed the maneuver with precision, striking at a critical point while shields protected the rest of the fleet. For the first time, the Virith experienced a setback that slowed their assault and gave humanity a fighting advantage. The Ordai were amazed. They had survived countless battles, but they had never seen another species combine courage, intelligence, and unity so effectively. Humans had adapted quickly, learning from mistakes, improving strategies, and working as one with the Ordai. The moment was small in the scale of the battle, but monumental in its meaning. Humanity could not only defend itself, but it could protect others as well. On Earth, the mood shifted from fear to cautious optimism. News broadcasts focused on the bravery of pilots, engineers, and volunteers. People shared messages of hope, knowing that the fight was far from over, but that humanity had proven its ability to resist the Virith. Communities supported defense efforts, and schools encouraged students to learn about science, strategy, and teamwork. Everyone felt part of something larger than themselves. The Virith regrouped for another attack, more powerful and coordinated than ever. Their energy pulses intensified and their ships moved in perfect synchronization, aiming to break human Ordai defenses. Commanders knew that mistakes could be fatal. Every shield adjustment, every pilot maneuver, every calculation mattered. Yet despite the pressure, humanity did not falter. The combination of courage, intelligence, and unity had given them strength. As the battle continued, humans and Ordai realized that victory would not come from brute force alone. It required strategy, patience, and the ability to adapt quickly. Pilots executed coordinated maneuvers that forced enemy ships into vulnerable positions. Engineers adjusted energy flows to strengthen shields at critical moments. Scientists provided real-time analysis of enemy movements, allowing commanders to make decisions with confidence. Humanity was learning, growing, and proving that even against a powerful enemy, courage and teamwork could succeed. The final turning point of this engagement came when humans and Ordai launched a coordinated counterattack. Using knowledge of Virith weaknesses, energy pulses, and precise fleet maneuvers, they forced a portion of the enemy fleet to retreat. It was not a complete victory, but it was a success significant enough to change the tide. The Virith had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and resist. For the first time, they faced a species willing to fight, to learn, and to protect not just themselves but others. As Part 5 ends, humanity and the Ordai are stronger, united, and more confident than ever. The Virith remain a formidable threat, but Earth has proven that courage, intelligence, and unity can resist even the most powerful enemy. The coming battles will test them further, but the human spirit, combined with the wisdom of the Ordai, has shown that survival is possible. The stage is set for a final confrontation that will determine the future of both species, and humanity stands ready to hold its ground. The final confrontation began quietly, almost like the calm before a storm. The Virith fleet had gathered at the edge of the solar system, vast and intimidating, their dark ships stretching across the horizon of space. Earth and the Ordai had spent weeks preparing, learning from every previous encounter, building shields, coordinating fleets, and training pilots. Every system was tested, every strategy planned, but still, no one could know for certain what would happen. Humanity felt the weight of the moment. Scientists, engineers, pilots, and ordinary people alike understood that this battle could determine the future, not only of Earth, but also of the Ordai. Fear was present, but it was balanced by determination. People had seen what courage could achieve in the earlier battles. They had learned to adapt, to trust one another, and to act together as one. Now, that unity would be put to the ultimate test. The first wave of the Virith assault hit swiftly. Energy pulses streaked across space, testing shields, probing defenses, and seeking weak points. The coordinated human Ordai fleet responded immediately. Shields flared and absorbed the worst of the attacks, while pilots executed maneuvers designed to protect vulnerable points. Engineers rerouted energy, Scientists calculated enemy patterns, and commanders gave precise instructions, keeping the fleet organized amidst chaos. It quickly became clear that this would not be a simple battle. The Virith were relentless, striking with precision, splitting forces and attacking multiple points at once. Yet humanity had learned. Fleet formations shifted constantly, energy shields adjusted in real time, and coordinated counterattacks disrupted enemy strategy. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. Courage was tested not only in pilots but in every person supporting the effort from Earth and orbit. The Ordai watched humans with awe. They had faced many enemies in their long history, but never had they seen a species rise so quickly, adapt so effectively, and act with such unity. Humans were learning not just to fight but to protect, to think ahead, and to trust in others when the odds seemed impossible. The bond between the two species had grown into something extraordinary, a true alliance based on respect, courage, and shared purpose. In the middle of the battle, a critical moment arrived. A Virith strike team attempted to bypass defenses and target key orbital stations near Earth. These stations controlled communication networks, power distribution, and shield coordination. If they fell, humanity could be crippled. Pilots and engineers worked together to intercept the attack. Fleet maneuvers became precise, almost like a dance, with each ship covering another, shielding critical points, and pushing the Virith back, step by step. Ordinary people on Earth played roles just as important as those in space. Volunteers monitored energy flows, technicians repaired minor system failures, and emergency services prepared for worst-case scenarios. Schools taught students about teamwork, problem-solving, and courage. Communities supported one another, sharing resources and ensuring that the population remained resilient. It was a collective effort, proving that courage is not limited to soldiers or pilots. It belongs to everyone willing to act. As the battle intensified, the humans and Ordai realized that the Virith had weaknesses. Their fleet was enormous, but coordination had limits. Their energy pulses were powerful yet predictable once studied. Humans, guided by Ordai experience, began to exploit these weaknesses, creating traps and diversions, forcing enemy ships into vulnerable positions. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, engineers adjusted shields dynamically, and scientists predicted enemy actions with increasing accuracy. Despite the growing confidence, the Virith did not yield. They attacked relentlessly, testing human defenses and Ordai strategies. Ships were damaged, shields faltered, and every successful defense required precise coordination. The stakes could not have been higher. Yet, humanity and the Ordai held firm. Each wave of attack strengthened their resolve, teaching lessons that no simulation or training could provide. Courage became a habit, unity became instinct, and hope became strategy. A decisive moment came when a group of human pilots, working closely with Ordai commanders, executed a maneuver that had never been attempted before. Using combined propulsion, systems, and synchronized energy pulses, they disrupted the Virith fleet's formation, causing confusion and forcing several enemy ships to retreat. It was a small victory in terms of numbers but monumental in its impact. Humanity had proven that they could fight not just defensively, but offensively, and succeed against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. The Ordai were deeply moved. For centuries, they had faced the Virith alone, witnessing countless civilizations fall. Now they saw another species, one they had once considered fragile, rise to challenge the hunters of the galaxy. Humans had learned to combine courage, intelligence, and unity into something that could protect not only themselves but others. The bond between the two species had become unbreakable, and together they began to turn the tide of the battle. As the fight continued, the Virith launched one last massive assault, their largest yet, aimed directly at Earth and the key orbital stations. Energy pulses lit up space, and the pressure on human and Ordai forces reached its peak. Pilots pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. Engineers worked without pause, and scientists provided constant analysis. Every person involved had to act perfectly, or lives would be lost. Yet the combined efforts of humanity and Ordai held the line. In this final wave, humans demonstrated creativity and courage that even the Ordai had not expected. Using diversions, synchronized attacks, and adaptive shields, they forced the Virith fleet to split its forces and retreat repeatedly. Energy pulses that had once threatened destruction were turned back, shields held under impossible pressure, and coordinated maneuvers disrupted enemy formations. It was the ultimate display of strategy, determination, and human spirit. Meanwhile, on Earth, people watched the unfolding battle with a mix of fear and awe. Children, families, and communities understood the stakes, yet they also saw hope. News broadcasts highlighted the courage of pilots, the skill of engineers, and the dedication of volunteers. People realized that survival depended not only on those in space but on every person willing to act, to help, and to hold on to hope. Courage was not a single act but a shared effort, a collective strength that united the world. The Virith, finally recognizing the resilience and determination of their opponents, began to retreat. Their fleet pulled back, energy pulses faded, and space grew quiet once more. It was not a complete victory, but it was the first time the Virith had ever been forced to leave without annihilating their opponent. Humanity and the Ordai had held their ground, proving that courage, intelligence, and unity could resist even the most powerful enemy. Celebration was quiet, cautious, and thoughtful. Pilots, engineers, scientists, and ordinary citizens had all played a part. Humanity had learned to work together across nations, cultures, and even species. The Ordai, once alone and hunted, now had allies, friends, and a chance to rebuild. The battle had tested every skill, every nerve, and every ounce of courage, and yet humanity had proven itself. In the aftermath, humans and Ordai worked together to repair damaged ships, reinforce defenses, and share knowledge. Lessons were learned, strategies improved, and bonds strengthened. The Virith remained a threat in the galaxy, but Earth had proven it could stand firm. Courage, determination, and unity had won the day. Humanity had risen to the challenge, not just to survive, but to protect another species that had been forgotten for centuries. As the stars shone quietly above, humanity understood something profound. Survival had never been guaranteed. Fear had been real. Danger had been immense, and the enemy had been merciless. Yet by working together, by trusting one another, and by acting with courage, humans had made a difference. The Ordai would live, Earth had survived, and a bond had formed that could endure for generations. Part 6 closes with humanity and the Ordai standing together, victorious but aware that the universe is vast and unpredictable. They had proven that courage, unity, and determination could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The Virith had retreated, but the lessons learned, the alliances formed, and the courage displayed would shape the future forever. Humanity had held its ground, and in doing so had become a force worthy of the stars.